Hello, and welcome to our latest video chat in the Money Show Expert Interview Series. I'm Mike Larson, Editor-in-Chief at MoneyShow, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Selma Hepp, Executive, Research and Insights and Economist at CoreLogic. Selma, thanks for taking some time out to talk today.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Let's start just big picture here. How would you categorize the current state of the housing market? Is it still weak like late 2022, picking up a bit, or somewhere in between?
Well, I would say it's somewhere in between. And I say that because it's not as bad as it was at the end of 2022, but it's still not nowhere definitely near where it was during the pandemic or even prior to the pandemic in 2019. It's barely inching up. There is some activity going on, and buyers have definitely responded very positively to declines in mortgage rates. But what's going on, unfortunately, is that sellers have not. And while we saw an increase in buyer demand, we haven't seen a similar increase in new listings or availability of inventory of homes for sale. So as a result of that, I think, home sales activity is still sort of trending sideways. That's been the case since it kind of jumped a little bit at the beginning of the year.
It's interesting you brought up the inventory situation. I saw the New York Times piece from back in February that kind of had your personal situation there, and how you have a lot of owners that are locked into low mortgage rates and they don't want to sell. Have things changed at all since then? Or if not, what do you think it's going to take to unlock these markets a little bit?
Yeah, no, it hasn't changed. And I think to some extent, it's even getting worse in the sense that new listings that we would traditionally see in spring home buying months are not getting posted, and declines have been as much as 50% compared to even prior to pandemic, when we did see a little bit more new homes coming on market. Then inventory has been a huge issue for a while now. This is not a new concern, but unfortunately the factor that made it a little bit more concerning right now is that a lot of folks are locked in very, very low, record low mortgage rates, and they really don't have an incentive to let those mortgage rates go. So, just to put it in context, 97% of mortgage debt outstanding, or borrowers that have a mortgage debt, have a mortgage rate below 6%, and over 80% have a mortgage rate below 4%. So, what will move the needle, I think, is mortgage rates really coming down to lower or mid fives. I've seen some surveys that ask borrowers and sellers, buyers and sellers, what will make things move for them, and it's a mortgage rate at about 5.5%, and we're still almost 100 basis point above that right now.
On some level, this housing market slump, to me anyway, seems like a completely different animal from what we experienced in the mid to late 2000s. Would you agree with that assessment? And if so, why or why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what happened last time around was different in a number of areas. One is that we actually had an oversupply of inventory, particularly in suburban or exurban parts of the metropolitan regions, which we certainly don't have right now. We now do have actually that demand for exurban and suburban areas. So we didn't, we had a larger increase in inventory. We also had lending standards that were much looser, and people were borrowing with very little down payment. They didn't have, as we used to call it, getting out of the Great Recession, skin in the game. Or even, lenders didn't either, where now we have much stricter lending standards. Borrowers are putting 20+% down. There's a lot of cash activity, which means, and much more so than there was last time around, which means that people really fully have skin in the game. And so between the inventory, between lending standards, I think just the outcome is going to be very different, even though, on one hand, we do have more investor demand out there, as we did last time around. But the difference this time is that investors last time were looking to flip properties. This time around, investors are investing to hold the properties and turn them into rental properties. So that, again, is an additional contributor to lack of available inventory for sale out there. In many ways, and the job market, this time, we're at some of the lowest rates of unemployment we've ever seen. And that's been trending for almost a year now. So, and folks are making more money, and so it's in many ways it's a much different situation this time around.
Got it. I look at the most recent numbers from CoreLogic, S&P Case-Shiller. I think house prices were up about just under 4% year over year in January, but down about 5% from the peak that we had back in 2022. What do you think is going to be happening here with home prices for the rest of this year?
Yeah, so that's, I mentioned strong buyer demand amid low inventory. And so that is putting pressure on home prices again. And what was interesting to see in early months of this year, that after 7 months of decline in home prices on a month-over-month basis, after mortgage rates increased, home prices rebounded again and started increasing on monthly basis. So in both March and February, home prices were up double the rate that they have been historically during these 2 months during the year. So that means that home price growth this year is going to be not as bad as a lot of folks originally thought, because there was a lot of expectations of double-digit declines in 2023. Now we don't expect to see that. We expect the average for the year to be about 4%, which is in line with sort of historical averages that we see. That's taken into account a lot of variation in 2022. We saw a surge in home prices in early 2022, followed by huge declines, and so taking that volatility and taking a gradual increase in 2023, we are expecting about 4% average increase for the year.
Okay. I guess one thing I'd want to wrap up then with would be the implications for the broader economy, given what's happening in housing. What impact is this going to have on construction activity, on GDP, things like that, if we're in the kind of current state of the housing market for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, so I think the strong demand that we are seeing it when home prices when mortgage rates have come down definitely spurred a lot of activity in terms of new construction sales, because builders were able to step in and do rate buy downs, and that really incentivized a lot of activity, particularly in markets where we do have more new home construction. Mind you, that's not the case across all markets in the US. But as a result of that, the inventory that builders were worried that they would have on hand as a result of slower demand, it's not, they're not having. So demand was being absorbed, and home builders are definitely doing much better, which I believe means that activity in 2023, particularly in the latter part of 2023 and 2024, is going to be stronger in terms of new construction, particularly compared to late 2022 again, or those during the times when we were thinking that we're just going to overall see slump in demand given high mortgage rates. So better than expected builder activity and new home construction activity. I think that definitely adds to generally does add to the GDP. I think our outlook still is for a mild recession, given some other trends in the economy, particularly now at this point, potential tightening of credit standards as banks are dealing with the turmoil that they are dealing with. Yeah. But I think in the very least, the new home construction part of the GDP is going to be better than initially anticipated.
Okay. I guess one last question I'd ask you. I know it's still a few months away till you'll be joining us in Las Vegas for the Investment Masters Symposium. Any kind of sneak peek you'd want to offer people, or what you think you might be talking about there?
Well, we'll be talking about a lot of the same things that we talked today, obviously with newer data, as we really at CoreLogic, we have great geographically wide and deep insight into what's happening in the housing market ecosystem. So obviously I keep, things are changing very rapidly too. So I will be making sure that I provide the most up-to-date data. We'll take a look at also mortgage trends. We'll take a look at home equity trends, some delinquency trends too. That's obviously a concern when we see a rise in unemployment, to see what's happening with folks that they're no longer able to make the mortgage payments. So, a variety of things is everything related to housing markets.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your insight, Selma, and thank you all for watching. If you'd like to hear more from her and dozens of other top market and economic experts, I do encourage you to check out our upcoming Investment Masters Symposium. It's going to be at the Paris, Las Vegas from August 8th to August 10th, and you can click the link in the video description below to check that out. So Selma, again, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. Take care.